Good boy. Welcome to 5-Minute Fridays. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, we're going to talk about seed prep, getting all of our seeding supplies, getting everything ready to go for seeding season. Seeding season is upcoming. If you're in a deep, deep south, this may be a time when you're already potentially seeding some things, maybe you're already putting some cool season vegetables in the garden, that kind of thing. Mostly what we're talking about here is going to be the things that we will be putting in the ground after our average last frost date, somewhere around April 15th for us here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and figuring out when we would start each individual seed based on, that outcome of having the seedlings ready at that time. So, what are some reasons why we would start our own seed? We could obviously go to garden centers and box stores and other places in the middle of April and buy things. Well, it's going to give us a lot more selection. You go open up a seed catalog, you're going to find way more things in the seed catalog than you're going to find on a shelf for finished plants. All of those places, they can't grow everything. They've got to kind of select some things, and we will still buy. We'll be buying from our local garden center. We'll be traveling some probably to buy some interesting things for the vegetable garden and for the our ornamental horticulture spaces for perennials and annuals and that kind of thing. So it's not like we won't buy anything, but we do like to start seed where we can, because again, it gives us that a lot more selection out there. It also allows me some control, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I really like to have control over the finished outcome of my seedlings, and I'll show you that system here in this video. Obviously, also gives you the option of having organic seed and knowing that the entire process was organic. Knowing that you bought an organic seed, you used an organic soil mix, and you followed all the steps for organic gardening. It kind of ensures that as well. Two other factors that come into this are, number one, cost. So, this one of these packets of seeds here, this one was $1.69, and it's full of seed. It would be 2 years worth of seed in all likelihood. And the plastic trays I use are reusable. So it's gonna be far less than buying them. And the other thing it allows me to do is get a jump start on the season, potentially if it's, seems like we're past our frost date maybe a week before and I'm looking out 10 days, I'll already have my finished plants, ready to go in the ground at that time. There will be seed that just makes sense to direct seed in the garden. Things like beans, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to germinate them in a tray and then transplant them later. Although you can buy them, as seedlings like that at garden centers and stuff. So there are some seeds that are just better direct seeded in the ground, where others, having a controlled temperature and a period of time and good soil and all those kinds of things do much better in the house. That includes tomatoes and peppers for sure. So there are some that are best suited for starting, from seed, and others either purchasing as plants or direct seeding in the ground. On the weekly garden planner that we sell over on the website, I have seed planting charts available for different zones. So if you're in zone 5, zone 6, zone 7. So if you were starting it from seed, when you would start it from seed, if you were going to buy it and put it directly in the ground, when that would be, that kind of thing. So there is that available on the weekly garden planner. We're equal opportunity seed purchasers, so we'll go to garden centers, box stores, order them online, seed exchanges, ask the occasional gardener if we can pull a seed pod off of something, all kinds of things, all kinds of ways in which we can acquire seed. A lot of it doesn't last forever. Some seeds last much longer than others, so if I buy a pack of seed and I only use half of it or less, and I'm keeping it year to year, some of those things will germinate just as well that next year. Some will drop off quite a bit. Probably as a general rule, if they're more than 2 years old, you may want to repurchase them. But as an alternative, you can take a wet paper towel and take about 10 seeds out of the pack and put it on top of that wet paper towel in a place that's not in direct sun. And over a course of a few days, you should start to see them germinate on that paper towel. It'll give you some sort of test as to whether or not that seed is still viable. Make sure the annual or perennial plants are well suited for your area. There are things that are not going to be humidity tolerant that may not be best suited for the Southeast United States. There may be things that are not as heat tolerant that probably are better northern candidates for your flower garden or your vegetable garden or whatever it is. So you may want to do a little bit of research on the seeds that you're getting before you're jumping in, because one thing is you'll put a lot of effort into something like this and then find out later that you know, that thing is just not a great fit for your area, but, you know, it went poor. You put a lot of work and effort into it. So, you know, and the other thing is just going to places and seeing them during the summer and seeing what's doing well in your area and then copying some of that, buying the seed for those things. One other requirement for seed starting is that some may require specialty planting or soaking or something like that in some way. So make sure you're reading the back of the packets thoroughly to make sure that you know, some seed will go directly on top of the soil, some will get lightly covered, some may get kind of thumbed down in the soil just a bit, a little deeper. Again, some may require an overnight soaking, some may require going in the refrigerator for a few weeks. I mean, most seeds you're purchasing aren't going to need anything like, you know, special like that, but it is within their own possibility. So make sure you read the tag, read them thoroughly. And then we actually organize, the last thing I'll say on the actual seed is we actually organize our seed by how long it takes for the seed to start to finish in one of these trays to a transplantable size. So the moment that I put this seed in here, in the soil, goes under the light rack that we'll show you in a minute, how long before that is rooted into there and ready to go in the ground. So I don't want to put this stuff in the ground before April 15th or April 20th or something like that. So if I go on the back of this Johnny seed pack and see that whatever pepper or whatever takes 6 to 8 weeks to be transplantable size, that means I need to back up from April 20th 6 to 8 weeks to start that seed in the house. So I'm filming this right here in January 12th or something. So I'm 3 months before my average last frost date. So I'm not going to start my pepper plants until sometime at least the middle of February, probably the 3rd or 4th week of February. That way the plants are just ready at the time that I'm ready to put them in the ground. You'll need some supplies to do your seed starting. We start in these rigid 50-cell plastic trays. You can buy these on Amazon or probably at some sort of farm supply store near you. I've got them available in my Amazon store if you're interested. The main reason I've always liked these rigid 50-cell trays, it could be 32-cell trays. 50 cells just means there's 50 different places to put it. Seedling in here. Could be 32s, could be 72s, whatever the heck you want to use. I've always liked these 50s. It gives me a decent size root ball that the plant can stay in here if I happen to do them too early or my space isn't ready, or you know, sometimes it takes us 2-3 weeks to get all these things actually planted into the ground, so they may linger in here a bit. So it gives me a decent size root ball to deal with that. You can start seeds in cardboard boxes and milk cartons and all kinds of seeding techniques that people use. You don't have to spend, this much money on. I will say that once I've bought these rigid 50-cell trays, and if you go back and watch my propagation videos on the channel or any of the seed starting videos, this is the tray I always use. I can use it over and over and over again. If something happens to one of these trays where the corner gets ripped off, I can just take 2 of them and combine them together in a different direction and just have them 2 deep for another 3 years, okay, of using them like that. And then underneath that, we use a solid tray, and that solid tray allows us to water from underneath. So this tray has holes in the bottom of it. This allows us to pull that to the side right there and water underneath and soak the water up this way. We have a light rack inside that's electrical, so I'm not trying to get water on the electric parts of my seed starting in there, but this is the technique we use. Since we're reusing all of these plastic parts and bits, you may want to rinse them off or clean them. If I haven't had any issues, if I haven't had any damping off or any what I felt like were problems with my seeding, then I don't worry about it all that much. I tend to just beat the soil out of them and then let them dry out and stack them neatly in the shed so they're not staying wet and funky through the season. And that I never had an issue. If you feel like you are having some sort of issues where some disease has crept into your seeding or something like that, you may want to either replace everything or sterilize them with some sort of bleach mixture that you could look up on the internet. My light rack here, we have 4-level light rack that I built on the HortTube with Jim Putnam channel. This may have been 5 or 6 years ago. You can go back and look at this video. I got 2 LED panels and I have 2 fluorescent panels. I will say that I kind of like the fluorescent panels more, even though they're burning a little more power. That heat that they're producing, I feel like actually helps me with my seed germination. We have them on this rack where we can raise and lower the lights here so that we'll have the light basically right down on top, just barely above before the seed germinates, and then as they germinate and grow, we can actually adjust the height of the lights on here. One other thing that was in that video is we also have a timer. If we happen to not, if we just want it to run 12 hours on, 12 hours off with the lighting, it can be done automatically if we wanted to. Typically, we just turn them on in the morning and turn them off in the evening when we're heading to bed, and let them rest during the nighttime hours. The seeds come with everything they need to get started. They don't initially need any type of fertilizer from you to get growing. But once they're up and they've got their first true leaves, we will start to use some fish fertilizer that will mix into our water. We don't have to water a whole lot initially. We'll get that soil mix that I'll talk about in just a second wet, and then it tends not to need any water until the seeds have germinated and start to use a little bit of that water. Of course, those fluorescent lights will burn a little bit more water off because of the heat than the LEDs. So you may have to do slightly more watering on the shelves that, you know, we have the fluorescent lights on. But we'll mix a little bit of fish emulsion into our water when we're watering, and that will give them that little bit of boost once they've kind of used up what they naturally came with, because we're going to use a soilless media, so it doesn't really have a whole lot of nutrients in it, but it controls the moisture really well, and that can be using some combination of perlite and vermiculite and peat moss or coconut coir or compost or pine bark, really fine pine bark. A lot of different things we can blend together to create a soil mix. And we can use a compost and pine bark mix if we want to use something that's not, that wasn't mined somewhere or shipped across the ocean or whatever. There are some mixes that are, not peat moss. Peat moss is mined from the ground. Coconut coir is from the tropics, and it's dehydrated, wrapped in plastic, put on a ship and shipped here, and people promote it as a replacement for perlite, like it's somehow more environmentally friendly. I don't see how that can be a possibility, but maybe. Both of them have their, critics, is all I'm saying. I tend to use a little bit of peat moss in our mix because of the way in which we're doing our seeding is a wicking. We're wicking the water up from the bottom, because I'm trying not to water over the top of them, because I don't want to potentially keep the seed itself too wet, or again damage my electronics, in electrical features in the house. So that little bit of peat moss in whatever mix I'm using is a wicking material. So it will wick that water off the bottom and keep that individual cell evenly moist. And coconut coir will do the same thing. They're both wicking materials. So anyway, that we will have some of that in our mix. Generally, we'll make our own, but again, you can buy whatever seed starting mix that you want to buy. But there's some of the ideas, thoughts about seeding. We're a month away from starting seed here for our Raleigh garden, and that's the stuff that's really the longest. Some of our perennials take longer. Peppers tend to be the longest of the vegetable garden stuff, but some of the stuff is only as little as 2 weeks from starting it from a seed, from having it rooted into one of these cells. It's unbelievable how fast some of it is. So again, we're organizing them in that order, making sure all of our materials are here, making sure that if we're going to use a light rack, that's here. But again, you can do all kinds of outdoor winter sowing techniques as well. Lots of that information is out on the internet. Again, I know these 5-Minute Friday videos are much longer than 5 minutes, but it's a timely video that we're trying to do each week to show the kinds of things that we're thinking about seasonally and weekly. And all of these things, plus a lot more, are on the Weekly Garden Planner over on the website. And I've got some of these materials linked down below this video if you're interested in jumping on your seed starting preparation before it's time to do so. Thanks for watching.